Welcome to Noni, Yanga's flagship talk show where we discuss all the hot topics. Today we take a look at the film industry in the UK, USA and Nigeria. We ask, is it difficult for black filmmakers to be taken seriously? And why are UK actors and producers heading to Hollywood? Joining me today, filmmaker Walter Banger Taylor and Nigerian film director Peace Ogsibe. So you're the first all-male panelist on Noni, so I hope I'm in safe hands today. And it's a really interesting discussion because you're both from Nigeria. I suppose when you hear the kind of bemoaning of black British, black American, or the diaspora saying, you know, we can't get, you know, any assistance, or it's really a struggle for us. Walter, can you understand where that perception or reality comes from?
I think I sort of can empathize as well. I mean, I lived here for maybe 15 years before I moved back.
Wow.
So part and parcel of me moving back was the lack of opportunities. So
describe what the lack of opportunities is, because of course, if you're in the creative industry, you're not kind of looking on websites or looking in the back of newspapers for jobs, are you? You're kind of out there on your own hunting. So what happened where you actually saw that, do you know what, Britain is just too hard, I'm going back home?
It was reverse for me. I went back and immediately I was a writer, or I'm a writer, went back and I got a writing gig immediately on holiday.
Wow.
And it was like to come back to England, and then I got another one. So I was telling my friends, oh, you know what? I'll be back next month. And the next month came around and literally was almost 8 months later and I came back. And then I came back and about 5 months later, I said, you know what? It's easier going back to Nigeria and doing these things. So it's more...
So it wasn't that there was a lack, it was just easier in Nigeria?
For me, personally, yes. I can only speak from my experience.
Yeah.
I think that was the case for me.
Peace, you know, you're a friend of the show now. We spoke about Judith, the film you directed, which I presume was all shot in the UK.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, we're not talking, I wouldn't say new Nollywood standards, but typical Nollywood standards. That was really well produced, really good storyline. How did somebody like you manage to do that? Because this is what we're talking about, the fact that, you know, there are so many black African directors, producers, creators here in the UK that just don't have those kind of opportunities.
The level of experience I was able to put together, I was able to groom myself with all the way back in Nigeria. Like, I believe there's a lot of filmmakers in Nigeria that are so good, but because of the structure, they cannot really bring out what they've got. Now, me being in the UK and was able to sponsor my project myself, I was able to experience and, you know, give out what I had just the way I want to give it out. And the experience I've gathered all through the years was able to help me put that together.
So it was self-funding?
Yeah, it was self-funding,
You know, if you've lived here for a while, back and forth, you know, you're based here, Peace. I'm sure when you're listening to young blacks, not just on TV, off TV, saying it's just difficult for them to go into the industry. And the reason why I think media is so important and people bemoan at the media for not allowing blacks in is because it shows how you're portrayed. If you have an all-white gallery, an all-white crew, you know, doing something with the black community, they're obviously going to be portrayed incorrectly. And this is why it's a struggle. So can you understand that, Peace?
I do understand that, but on the other hand, I won't put it all the way that way, because there's some Nollywood film going on in the UK that will have a mix of white and blacks in it.
Yeah.
It doesn't still change the idea of what is happening right now in the film industry. But I think what we're suffering as Nollywood, either in Nigeria or in diaspora, is structure. That is just all we're suffering. Because if a Nigerian filmmaker does a production, films a production, spend money, or maybe through one partner or one sponsor, and the question is, how do we make our money back? So because we can't make our money back, we don't have a structure already put in place for us to get this dividends back, or this investment back, then it becomes very tough.
See, this is quite interesting then, and I presumed it would be because, of course, you're both very familiar with Nigeria. And I think if you are, sometimes, and not all the time, you can be more secure within yourself because you're born and raised in Africa, you're an African, so you come to Britain for opportunities. You're not looking for everybody to bow down and give you everything you want. But Walter, can you understand for people who, you know, are not necessarily familiar with Africa, don't understand why their white counterparts are getting the opportunities that they're not, and they're British based?
Yeah, I can totally get that. But I wouldn't know how to suggest a sort of resolution
Yeah,
to it and that
yeah.
kind of stuff. I mean, I can give you some examples. I mean, when I used to be here, or when I was here, how I started, I was a writer. And I wrote a British gangster flick called Get Lucky, which got picked up by Gateway, got released by
Wow.
Universal.
Oh.
And I was in Nigeria at the time when they were shooting.
But it was a British gangster flick.
It's British Gangster Flick was released in the cinema over here with my Luke Treadaway was in the film. Emily Attack was in the film.
Gosh, we've got royalty here.
Well, but the funny story was, literally I came on set and I was stood at the door and the security guy was looking at me like,
Wow.
stand out, and then I had to call my friend in to come in, and then halfway through it, they just said, oh, by the way, this is the guy that wrote the script, and the only reason why any of you are here on this production is because of this. And all of a sudden, everyone just, and it was totally, so.
Wow. So you can laugh about that, but that's quite serious. If you're not secure within yourself, that can affect you.
Yeah.
I stood outside the set while, the security guards and everything and it was quite weird, but I kind of got it.
Okay.
But you didn't like it, but you kind of got it, and it wasn't a case of I was gonna make a fuss about it, but you kind of prepare yourself. You have to build a thick skin about it.
That's a really interesting point. And do you think, Peace, you have to have a thick skin? And if you're working in the industry as a young black, see it as, okay, there are going to be, prejudices, but you've got to push through. Don't be annoyed. Walter could have easily started an argument with that security guard, and his name could have been blacklisted from the industry.
That's very true. Yeah, you've got to have a very thick skin. But the truth is, whether we like it or not, are you saying to me now there are no whites that also find it very hard to break into their own industry?
I think it's competitive,
Yeah,
but I think you're more likely, the media's as white as snow here.
Yeah, because
in the UK,
we're the white man's
deny
country.
that.
We're the white man's country, so definitely it's going to be like that. You just can't help it. It's going to be like that if you're not careful forever. It's going to be like that because you're in a white man's country. And so it's going to be kind of tough for them when they come to Nigeria also.
Okay.
Because a Nigerian wants to be in the helm of affairs of his own thing.
I think a lot of people are going to disagree with you, but it's a very cut-dry response to that. But we'll continue this after the break. Still to come, with hit movies such as Girls Trip, Black Panther and Get Out, we ask, is it time for black people to shine? See you after the break. Welcome back to Noni. Now, from Spike Lee to Jordan Peele and Steve McQueen, black directors are doing huge things in Hollywood. So is this our time to shine in the movie industry? We're going to talk about Hollywood soon because Walter has personal experience of that. But just going back to what we were discussing before the break, Peace, and again, sticking up for the diaspora Brits who are watching. And of course, with minority communities, it is so complex. So another layer to, getting into the industry, and the reason why the creative industries, not just media, but in fashion and publishing, the reason why it can be very white is because of the fact that you have to do so many internships. There are so many things you have to do where you don't get paid, but then of course you're supporting your family, your parents are expecting you to have a job. And can you see that as a barrier to why there are few blacks making it?
Yeah, it's definitely a barrier because I don't know why somebody comes all the way from school, graduated, and is a professional, and you want that person as an intern. This person pays his rent. We pay bills in London.
Well, not if you live off the bank of mum and dad.
Exactly.
You've still got a lovely room.
A lot of people still have to pay their loans.
Yeah.
Their school loans and it's a whole lot of mess. So doing that, nobody has that patience. They don't have that patience for that anymore.
I'm not sure if it's the patience or whether or not it's the ability to do it. And we speak about this all the time. And I don't want to go too much off topic, but it's about access for young black youths. And you can have all the talent you want, but if you don't have the financial backing and the support, you're just not going to make it. But let's talk a little bit about Hollywood. Come on, Walter, add.
I would also add to sort of from a African or black background, parents don't really see entertainment or film work as a serious job.
Yeah.
So if you're not going into banking or
engineering,
accounting, they're not really going to want to support you.
Yeah. What about Hollywood, Walter, you've got your experience and I'd really love to hear it. There's a lady, a British lady, black actress called London Hughes. She actually put a message on social media ranting and raving about going over to LA and being in pilot season, just the way she was treated and the way she felt. And she did say, for women out there, for people of colour, for dreamers, for everyone, Hollywood is inclusive. Do you agree with that? And let's have your honest experience, because we know Hollywood isn't literally the land of dreams, but it is perceived to be, because so many of our stars are going out there and making it.
Well, you have to, because I think it's the mecca of all film for the whole world in general. So anyone, wherever you are, if you want to succeed or if you feel you've reached the pinnacle, you have to go to Hollywood, and then you have to starve it out. But I think it's hard enough for white people in Hollywood talk less of someone else of color. I'll give you an example. My old flatmate used to be in The Bill. He used to play, his name was T.J. Ramini. He played Zayn Nadir, and he he has olive skin, let's put it that way. So over here in England, he's a white guy. And he was always, we would go out and he'd always be the white guy. The minute he went to Hollywood, this is someone who just has olive skin, he looks Mediterranean. He was now cast as, the terrorist, and he was complaining. And I used to say to him, but you're one step higher than everyone else. So think about what the blacks would be going through and how they would get.
And that's on screen, right? So what's it like off screen?
Yeah, that one.
Tell us.
Well, for me, it was an eye opener. I wouldn't say I enjoyed the process. I just had to just fold my hands and say, you know what, Walter, just keep quiet and let this film get made. The first time we wrote, before I'd signed over my scripts, I was lovey. Oh, you're amazing, you're wonderful.
You're a star, we love you.
And the minute the contract came and I'd signed over the rights, and literally I'd just be, bypassed, and emails going back and forth, and and it was quite funny, because every once in a while I'd see an email and they'll be arguing about how to make the script wonderful, and I'd be sitting there going, well, because you took out those 3 scenes, if you had put that back, then that would have given you the motivation.
Do you think that had anything to do with colour and the fact that, people were changing your interpretation of how your script was?
Yes.
Or is it, you did?
They cut out scenes. I mean, there was a classic scene, I keep relaying it back, whereby it had there were two black guys in the script, and they now changed the black guy to a white guy.
Oh, okay.
Then there was a taxi scene where a black guy was trying to stop a taxi, and he couldn't get a cab.
Wow.
And it was all tied into the scene. And it was based on one of my experiences, sort of thing, trying to stop a black cab in the middle of the night, and the taxi's going round and round, and then the white guy jumps in the car.
Was it removed?
Oh, it was
removed.
86.
And that was clearly because of. Did you ask about why that was removed?
I didn't need to ask.
You didn't need to.
Because there was a lot of, in fact, there was a lot of stereotyping going on. One of my characters, I wanted to be a bad guy, but I didn't want to be a bad guy because he was black. I just wanted he was a black guy. And then the more, everything they started doing was, making this stereotypical black guy, wife beater, angry, this and that. And I was like, you know what? Can we change this guy from a black guy? Because, when you have an English person or a white person, if they're bad, they're different shades of why they're bad.
Yeah, it's not just because he's violent and he doesn't have his daddy at home.
Thank you.
But that's really interesting. So Hollywood are really perpetuating these things. Even if there's a black writer, that's deleting and altering.
And professionally, you meant to actually contact the writer.
When you're in Hollywood, would you do that, or you sign the check?
No, I'm saying, but before you make any alterations to the script,
Yeah.
you need to communicate to the writer and say that, okay, this is what we're seeing. What do you see? Because he's the first visionary before the director buys into his
In
vision.
an ideal world.
In an ideal world,
Yeah.
but of course, what we're saying, and the reason why we're having this discussion, is because that doesn't happen, and often you are deleted. Let's talk about Dave Chappelle, for example. $50 million. Everybody heard about it.
Yeah.
He signed the check and he ran away. He later had a discussion with Oprah. Everybody said he's mad, he's crazy, he was on drugs. He said he wasn't.
Yeah.
He just didn't like the manipulation. I suppose Hollywood can manipulate you, can't you, if you're a young black, and make you change who you are.
It surely can, and it will continue that way. These are the things that we Africans, we either try our best to be able to conquer, or we just have to live with it.
Do you think we can be our own worst enemies?
Yes, we can be our worst enemy if we keep depending on these whites to be able to
Yeah,
make
but
our
Hollywood is ran by whites. Is that fair
So
to
why
say?
don't we make our own structure then? Why can't we?
Well, we have Nollywood, and it's just not big enough, and it's not making that much
It's
money.
big enough because Nollywood is the third, richest industry in the world. But the truth is this: what our structure is our problem. If we have this massive viewership, are you getting this massive viewership? Because after the Hollywood is the Bollywood, after Bollywood is Hollywood. Now we have what we want. All we need to do is to put the right structure together.
We do. But then why
Yeah.
are these actors and actresses running to Hollywood? Chitwa Ejiofor, why is he not running to Nollywood? Do you know what I mean?
because
He ran
he
to
won't make the
Hollywood,
money
and
from Nollywood.
his films are nominated for Oscars.
They wouldn't make the money for it. Chiwetel Ejiofor did a production in Nigeria.
Half a Yellow
Half a
Sun.
Yellow-
Yeah,
Half a
but
Yellow
that
Sun.
was
But-
that was a white production.
Yes.
It was written. It was a Nigerian story written
Yeah.
by a Nigerian, and
Yeah.
it was a white production.
Funded
Come
by
on.
Nigeria,
Exactly.
though.
Funded by Nigeria.
Yeah, that
You
was
know
the
what I
shame.
mean?
That was the shame.
But the truth is, it's just a structure. Hollywood has a method. They have a structure.
It's the Mecca, as Walter
Yeah,
said. I don't
until
think
we set
anyone
it
would
right.
disagree.
We can get it right. Trust me, we can get it right.
But do you sometimes feel like, let's talk about Lee Daniels, let's talk about Tyler Perry. Monique, she's been in the media saying, they've sold out, Oprah's sold out, they make it big, the storylines change, they forget about who they are. Do you
Yeah.
think there is a sacrifice for some black movie makers and those who don't, toe the line and don't want to, stop casting certain people, they kind of get sidelined?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think that more to the point, we feel like we need other people. We feel that we need affirmation from others. I don't think that we feel that we can do it within ourselves. It's starting to come, with sort of the new generation of black filmmakers. They're starting to bond together. They're starting to do things by themselves.
Yeah,
They're starting
you can
to,
feel that, can't you? Look
yes.
at Girls Trip, Black
Yes.
Panther.
Yeah, I mean those are the kind of elements that are needed, and I feel likewise with Nollywood, we have a platform. We can get filmmakers from Hollywood, black filmmakers from Hollywood. We can get black filmmakers from the UK. We can get black actors. And then we can build within.
Yeah, and I suppose, and it is happening, isn't it? We can see it's more. But do you think that sometimes, Peace, you have to lose your blackness? I think I know what you're going to say to this. But
I love my black man.
I know.
I love it like.
I can tell. I love it too.
But you said something earlier, and I'm going to pick on it, and I'm really happy she said it. Tyler Perry. I think 2 days ago, I stumbled on this online. I watched Whoopi Goldberg talking about the Tyler Perry Studios. Have you heard about the Tyler Perry Studios?
Who hasn't?
It's the biggest, and she was like, she was so happy, and like, this a black man doing this.
Yeah.
This is a black man challenging Universal. This is a black man challenging whatever studios
Well,
that runs.
is he challenging them? Some would argue that Tyler Perry's walking hand in hand with them, and they've allowed him. They've given him the space. Do you know what I mean? Not that he's challenged them.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry, you wouldn't put in the same category as somebody like Spike Lee, would you? Or John Singleton?
Well, I would rate him way above that because Tyler Perry is affecting black lives.
He is.
He's
I
affecting
agree.
black
I
lives.
agree.
I don't
But
have.
at what cost?
Yeah, unfortunately, Hollywood has the structure. He has to link with the structure to be able to get himself running.
But then Spike Lee
Yeah.
and Steve McQueen, they have the freedom, right?
Yeah.
Well, and the money, or no? Tell us. Dish out all your secrets.
I don't have any
we need
secrets.
another example.
I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn. I mean, Spike had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Simply
Yeah,
because
still now.
he was very vocal and
Yeah.
he was trying to do sort of the right thing, too black, too strong kind of thing.
Too black, too strong.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how some of us are tagged.
All of us.
Yes. And, people say, oh, well, Spike is too controversial. And that. Well, how has it been controversial? Just by pushing up.
That's quite interesting. Can I ask a personal question very quickly, because we're
Yeah.
going to wrap from both of you. When you are casting or when you are writing, are you casting and writing for fellow blacks, or do you not see colour? Or are you using your platform to say, do you know, I've got to get this story out. I want more blacks on screen, or no?
If I do my story, I only write to be able to achieve the idea behind the story.
See, not for the colour of
No,
somebody.
if the color, whatever color that the story states that it should be, then that's what I cast for. I don't just actually just say no, it has to be all blacks. Or sometimes you want to do like a Nigerian story, definitely you need more of Nigerians, but your environment determines,
What about you, Walter? Are you using your amazing opportunities to bring more black characters and stories?
Yeah, I mean, it tends, it's subconsciously, because I'm very sort of Pan-African anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's subconsciously,
Here.
subconsciously comes out.
Yeah.
So it's one of the reasons why I kind of took a step back. I moved to Nollywood, and because I wanted to tell sort of stories and have sort of the Hollywood experience put into Nollywood. I mean, I did a film called Bomo Bomo Express, which is based on kidnapping, and it was actually written to be shot here. And it was, you know, it was I had it in mind to try and pitch it to the same people we sold Get Lucky to, and I thought, hang about, why don't I just take this story and make it a Nigerian story? Yeah. And that's why I lost an investor because I called it Bomo Bomo Express.
Wow.
They were like, why do you call it Bomo Bomo Express?
That was a very nice movie. I saw that movie.
Yeah, and I definitely want to be cast in both of your movies as a successful black woman. Right, that's it from me, Juliana Oliyinka, and my fantastic guests today, Walter Waltbanger Taylor, and Peace Sigbe. And guys, don't forget, Noni's now available online. Wherever you are in the world, go to www.yangatv.com to check out every single episode. Join me next time for more Noni Chat. Goodbye.